All right, let's talk TestNG. You've got a test, and it just can't run. What do? It's a classic dilemma, right? Do you skip it, or do you just fail it? Today, we are going to break down this exact showdown because, trust me, making the right choice here is way more important than you might think.
So, you know the drill. Picture this. You've got a test sitting in your suite, but for whatever reason, maybe the feature's half-baked, maybe a key dependency is just down, it's not ready to go. So what's the right move? Do you just hide it, or do you flag it as a problem? This is something every single developer runs into, and that's exactly what we're going to get into.
Okay, so in the ring today, we've got two main contenders. In one corner, we've got enabled equals false. I like to call this one the skipper. And in the other corner, we've got Assert.fail, or as we'll call it, the failer. Now, at first glance, they might seem kind of similar, but trust me, they operate in completely different ways. Let's see how.
All right, first up, let's talk about the skipper. This one's all about telling TestNG to, just look the other way.
So what does enabled equals false actually do?
Well, it's a simple annotation you pop onto your test method, and it's basically a direct order to the TestNG engine that says, hey, do not run this test at all. Seriously, the code inside that test method, it's never even touched. It's like you've temporarily just commented out of the entire test run. So when do you actually call on the skipper? Well, it's absolutely perfect for those tests that are still a work in progress, Like if you've written the test case, but the feature itself isn't fully baked yet, skipping it just makes sense. It's also fantastic for tests that cover features that might be temporarily turned off or are just irrelevant to the current build. But here's the crucial part. You use this when you want that test to be completely invisible in your final pass/fail stats.
Okay, let's head to the other side of the ring. It is time to meet the failer, Assert.fail. Now this one takes a much more direct and frankly aggressive approach. So unlike the skipper, Assert.fail doesn't stop the test from running at all. Nope. Instead, the test actually starts executing its code just like normal. But, and this is the key, as soon as it hits that Assert.fail command, bam, the test stops dead in its tracks and is immediately marked as a failure. It's a very intentional, very controlled stop. So you might be asking, why on earth would I want to fail a test on purpose? Well, it all comes down to one thing: communication. You use this when a supercritical precondition for the test just isn't met. For example, let's say your test absolutely requires a database connection, but that connection fails right at the start. You'd use Assert.fail to immediately stop everything and report that failure. This makes it crystal clear in your reports that, hey, something important went very, very wrong.
All right, so we've met our two contenders. Now it's time for the main event, a direct head-to-head comparison. We're going to look at 4 key areas to really truly lock in the differences between these two.
And you know what? The source material for this has this absolutely brilliant breakdown that puts everything into perspective. Let's just walk through it together, shall we? Okay, let's break this down. First up, execution. With enabled equals false, the test is a total no-show. It never even starts. But with Assert.fail, the test actually gets going right up until it hits that fail command. Now, what about the result? Well, enabled equals false marks a test as skipped or ignored. Assert.fail, on the other hand, slaps a big failed sticker on it. Their purpose is totally different too. You skip a test when it's incomplete or just not relevant right now. You fail a test when you want to make a deliberate, logical point that something is wrong. And finally, and this is the big one, the reports. Skip tests, they don't even show up in your pass/fail count. They're ghosts. But failed tests, oh yeah, they absolutely count, and they basically scream for your attention.
All right, so we've seen the what, the core differences between these two. Now let's get practical and explore the when. Let's put this knowledge to the test with a couple of super common scenarios.
Okay, scenario number 1. You're knee-deep in a new feature. You've even started writing the tests for it, but the code itself, it's not finished. So the test would obviously fail if you tried to run it. What's your move here? This is a job for the skipper, enabled false. And why is that? It's simple. The test just isn't relevant yet. You definitely don't want an incomplete test just cluttering up your reports with a bunch of meaningless failures, right? By using this, you're basically putting a giant Do Not Disturb sign on it, which keeps your test suite clean and focused on the stuff that's actually ready to be checked. Okay, on to scenario 2. Your test absolutely has to connect some external service to do its job. But during the setup phase, that connection totally fails. There's no way this test can pass, So what do you do now?
This is where you bring in the failer, Assert.fail. See, this is a real problem, and it needs attention right away. You want to send up a flare to loudly and clearly signal that the test failed because a critical piece of the puzzle was missing. If you just skipped it, you'd be hiding a potentially serious issue in your whole testing environment, and that just gives you a false sense of security.
So really, it all boils down to a pretty simple rule of thumb. If you're going to remember just one thing from all this, make it this. Use enabled equals false to ignore what's irrelevant, and use Assert.fail function to report when something is impossible. One is about quietly hiding the noise, the other is about sounding a critical alarm.
And that pretty much wraps it up. Now that you really know the difference, it leads to a much bigger question you can take back to your own projects. Go on, take a good, hard look at your skipped tests. Are they really just harmless, incomplete work? Or are they maybe hiding something more? What story are they really telling you about the health of your project? That's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.